The scent of polished mahogany and expensive cologne greets me as I push open the heavy glass doors of Morgan Industries headquarters, arriving 30 minutes early. The quarterly board meeting isn't until 9, but something in Dad's voice during our brief call yesterday unsettled me. He'd called it a routine discussion about budget allocations, but the tension in his tone said otherwise. The executive floor unfolds in quiet elegance, thick, cream-colored carpet that muffles my steps, walnut paneling glowing under recessed lights. Family portraits line the corridor, generations of Morgans posed formally, their stern eyes following me as I pass. In my simple charcoal pantsuit and low heels, I feel out of place, a sharp reminder of the gap between my research-centered life and the corporate world my family commands. I slow as voices drift from the boardroom. The door is slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hall. "Just sign here, William. TechCore will transfer the funds once we close," says a clipped, unfamiliar voice. $3.5 million is robbery considering what we've invested in that division, Dad replies, his deep voice unmistakable. "It's more than fair for unproven technology," says my sister Victoria. Her tone smooth and confident, the kind that seals deals. My heart pounds. They're discussing my division, my research. I push the door open fully, the hinges giving a soft protest. Four heads turn at once. Dad in his tailored Italian suit. Victoria in her signature red blazer with gold buttons worth more than my monthly rent. James hunched slightly in his chair. And a thin man with spectacles I don't know. Papers scatter across the polished table. One slides toward me. Before Victoria snatches it back, I catch the bold title, Quantum Stability Division Asset Transfer Agreement. Elizabeth. Dad recovers first, his silver eyebrows knitting. The meeting isn't for another half hour. "You're selling my life's work without even telling me?" The words burst out raw and disbelieving. Dad sighs, adjusting his monogrammed cuffs. "Your little science project has drained enough company resources, Elizabeth. 6 years of funding with nothing concrete to show investors." "Nothing concrete?" I step forward, hands trembling. "We've achieved quantum stability at room temperature for 17 minutes. Do you understand what that means?" Victoria laughs, the sound sharp. "Elizabeth's basement tinkering," she tells the stranger with a thin smile. "Always promising breakthroughs that never arrive." I glance at James, hoping for support. He studies his Italian leather shoes, shoulders curved inward as if shrinking away. A memory flashes. Grandma Morgan's weathered hands gripping mine 3 months before she died. "They don't understand vision, Lizzie," she'd whispered. "But I do. That's why I'm setting up this trust for your research. Don't let them stop you. 6 years of 18-hour days. My small team working weekends and holidays, pushing boundaries everyone said were impossible. Dad ignoring quarterly reports without reading them. Victoria mocking my expensive hobby at family dinners. And now this. Selling everything for a fraction of its worth to the first buyer who showed interest. This division has cost us nearly $12 million. Dad says, his tone softer but still dismissive. The board agrees it's time to cut our losses. The board hasn't even met yet, I counter, my voice steadier than I feel. A formality. The voting shares are already aligned. He gestures to the papers. TechCore is being generous under the circumstances. The room tilts slightly. 6 years of work. My team's futures. All the potential applications still ahead. Medical imaging that could transform cancer detection. Encryption that could secure financial systems. Energy transfer that could slash power consumption. I turn to leave, legs heavy. Dignity my only remaining shield. At the doorway, I pause. A sudden calm settles over me. Grandma's voice echoes in my mind. Remember who owns those patents, Lizzie. Remember how to protect yourself. I turn back, meeting Dad's impatient gaze. You might want to check the ownership of those patents before you sign anything else. The words hang in the air. Dad's expression shifts. Confusion first, then a flicker of doubt. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand freezes midair, the pen suspended above the signature line. James finally looks up, his eyes widening as realization sets in. I walk out, closing the door behind me with a quiet click that feels louder than it should in the sudden silence. The revolution has started. The next morning, after gathering more documents to support my research, sunlight cuts through the blinds as I pace my living room, phone in hand, dialing Margaret's number again and again. 6 years of work. My life's dedication, and they tried to sell it for scraps without even telling me. I'm outside, Margaret says when she finally picks up. And I'm not alone. I open the door to find Margaret Wheaton, sharp in a charcoal suit that makes my simple clothes look almost careless. Her Harvard Law diploma may hang downtown, but her presence fills my hallway. Behind her stands Dr. Thomas Reynolds, my research partner, carrying an overflowing accordion file. You were right, Margaret says, stepping past me. Her heels strike the floor with precision. We found everything. Thomas sets his laptop on the kitchen counter while Margaret lays out documents across my coffee table with clinical order. Each page feels like evidence in a case I never wanted to confront. Your father has blocked every funding request you've made for the past 3 years, Margaret says, tapping a folder with one perfectly manicured nail. And there's more. Thomas swivels his laptop toward me. Look familiar? On the screen is a PowerPoint with Victoria's name on top. The slides show quantum stability algorithms identical to the ones we built 6 months ago. She's been taking our research. My voice sounds hollow. How? Remember Jason from IT? Thomas asks. She convinced him she needed admin access for a security check. She's been pulling data for nearly a year. I collapse onto the sofa, the room shifting around me. She presented this as her own? Not just presented, Thomas says, his voice hardening. She won innovation awards for it. The bonuses she got for breakthrough thinking were larger than our entire lab budget. Margaret hands me a folder marked Morgan Industries, Internal Correspondence. Inside are printed emails between Victoria and my father spanning years. Don't worry about Elizabeth's funding requests, Dad wrote in one. The board never sees them. I make sure of it. Another from Victoria. Had dinner with tech core executives. They're excited about quantum stability. I told them my division is making progress. Dad's reply freezes me. Good. Elizabeth's project is wasting money. When the time is right, we'll transfer ownership to your division. Legacy matters more than credit. My hands tremble as anger rises. I think of all the weekends my team sacrificed, the progress reports Dad ignored, the times Victoria mocked my work while secretly stealing it. I look at Margaret, standing firm with her arms crossed. We're going back, I say, standing. Now. An hour later, we walk into Morgan Industries headquarters. The receptionist waves us through without hesitation. In the elevator, Margaret hands me a thick folder. Your grandmother was smarter than all of them. The patents are watertight, registered in your name and protected through her trust. Your father can't touch them. The boardroom falls silent as I push the door open. Dad sits at the head of the table, Victoria smug beside him in a burgundy suit. James slumps in his usual seat, eyes down. 3 board members I know as Dad's golf partners line the side. Elizabeth, Dad says, his tone sharp. This is a private meeting. About my research division, I reply, stepping in. Margaret and Thomas follow, closing the door firmly. So yes, I belong here. Victoria's smile tightens. We were discussing asset realignment. Nothing to do with endpoint. You mean theft? Thomas cuts in, placing a flash drive on the table. Theft of intellectual property that isn't yours. Margaret steps forward, small but commanding. I've prepared documentation proving systematic theft, fraud, and misuse of corporate resources. She distributes copies across the table. Elizabeth's patents are independently owned through the Eleanor Morgan Trust. Any attempt to sell them is corporate fraud. Victoria snatches her copy, color draining from her face as she flips through it. You always were dramatic. Elizabeth, Dad says, but uncertainty creeps into his voice. This is business, not personal. Stealing my work is very personal, I reply, surprised at how steady my voice sounds, just like blocking my funding while Victoria paraded my research as her own. Victoria slams her palm on the table. Innovation doesn't count unless it carries my name. You've always been satisfied hiding in your lab while I built relationships and made things happen. You mean taking credit for other people's work? Thomas projects emails onto the wall screen. Victoria's correspondence with Jason in IT, instructions to access our server, and file transfers of our research data. One of the board members, an older woman with silver hair, studies the documents, her frown deepening. William, if these allegations are true— They're not, my father interrupts. Elizabeth has always had an overactive imagination, playing in her lab while the rest of us ran a business. He rises, towering over the table. His cold, furious gaze locks on mine. You'll never work in this industry again. I made you. I can break you. The words hang between us like a declaration of war. 6 years ago, they would have crushed me. Today, they fuel my resolve. The patents are in my name, I say quietly. Funded by grandmother's trust. She saw what you couldn't or wouldn't. The boardroom falls silent. Even Victoria stops shuffling papers, her face now unreadable. The silver-haired board member stands. We need an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. All board members present. Full financial disclosure. She looks pointedly at my father. No exceptions. My father's face reddens as he realizes control is slipping from his hands. This meeting is adjourned until tomorrow. I gather my things, aware of every eye following me. As I reach the door, Victoria's voice cuts through the silence. Family loyalty used to mean something to you, Elizabeth. Grandmother would be ashamed. I pause, hand on the doorknob. No, Victoria. Grandmother knew exactly who you were. That's why she left the trust to me. The door closes behind me with a soft click, but it sounds like thunder in my ears. In the hallway, Margaret squeezes my arm. First round to you, she whispers. But tomorrow is the real battle. I nod, the weight of what's ahead settling on my shoulders. This isn't just about my research anymore. It's about truth and justice. The fight has only begun. Later, an email notification from PR Newswire pings as I stare at my apartment ceiling. It's been 6 hours since the boardroom confrontation. I force myself to check my phone, already knowing what I'll see. Morgan Industries addresses leadership. Concerns in quantum division, the press release. Quotes my father extensively about his deep concern for Elizabeth's well-being and her recent erratic behavior. Victoria appears in paragraph 3, expressing heartbreak over family matters spilling into business. The subtext is clear. I'm unstable, unreliable, and a threat to the company's future. I throw my phone across the room. It bounces harmlessly off the worn sofa. The apartment feels suddenly suffocating, bookshelves overflowing with quantum theory texts, the coffee table buried under journal articles, and the kitchenette cluttered with graduated cylinders from late-night calculations. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. Your keycard access has been terminated, Dr. Morgan, says the security manager, his tone professionally neutral. Your team has been placed on administrative leave pending review. My team? The words escape strangled. 7 brilliant minds. Now their livelihoods hang by a thread because of me. I'm sorry. Director's orders. He hangs up before I can respond. I sit motionless as golden afternoon light filters through blinds I haven't adjusted in days. A text from Dr. Reynolds flashes on my screen. Don't panic. Trust me. 3 sharp knocks at my door pull me from my spiraling thoughts. Through the peephole, I see 5 people in the narrow hallway, arms full of cardboard boxes. Elizabeth, open up. Dr. Reynolds' voice is urgent but steady. I unlock the door to find my entire research team, -2, standing there. Reynolds, Aditi, Marcus, Cooper, and Simone. Their faces show determination, not defeat. You've got about 20 minutes before security realizes we removed these from the lab, Reynolds says, brushing past me with an improvised storage setup. What is all this? I ask, stunned as they unpack equipment. Hard drives and stacks of notebooks. Aditi, our algorithm specialist, grins. We saw this coming 6 months ago when your sister started asking those oddly specific questions about our encryption protocols. You knew? My voice cracks. We didn't know exactly what they planned, Reynolds explains, connecting a laptop to an external drive. But we've worked with your family long enough to recognize when the vultures start circling. Marcus, our quietest member, speaks. We've been backing up everything. Off-site, triple redundancy. And working weekends at my place, adds Cooper, adjusting his glasses. Which, no offense, has better coffee than the lab. Simone pulls a flash drive from her pocket and holds it up like a trophy. This is the real prize. Breakthrough progress on the quantum stability algorithm. 3 weeks of work they don't know about. A knock at the door freezes the room. Reynolds motions everyone to stay still as I approach the peephole. James stands alone in the hallway, shoulders hunched, glancing around like a man in a spy film. I open the door just enough to block his view of the living room. What do you want? 5 minutes. His voice lacks its usual corporate polish. Please. I step into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind me. Make it fast. James runs a hand through his thinning hair. I knew, he admits, eyes down. About the sale. About Victoria stealing your research. About the campaign to discredit you that launched this morning. The hallway feels narrower as blood rushes to my head. And you did nothing? I was a coward. His admission hangs between us. But I'm done with that now. He pulls a folder from inside his jacket. Victoria's division hasn't produced original research in years. Just acquisitions and rebranding. These financial records prove it. I take the folder without opening it. Why now? James finally meets my eyes. Dad built an empire through brute force. But you could change the world. His glance shifts toward my apartment door. Your team turned down TechCore's offers this morning. Every single one of them. $500,000 each to leave, and they all said no. Something warm rises in my chest, cutting through the cold anger that has followed me since the boardroom. Dad doesn't understand loyalty he can't buy, James says. That makes you dangerous to him. After James leaves, I find my team huddled around Reynolds' laptop, their faces lit by scrolling code. Henderson and Farouk are still at the lab, Reynolds explains, feeding us information. The PR campaign is just the beginning, I tell them, sinking into my lone armchair. They'll come after all of you next. Your careers. Your reputations. They already have, Simone says, sliding her phone across the coffee table. On the screen are texts from recruiters offering fresh starts away from the Morgan situation. TechCore offered me a corner office and stock options. Cooper snorts. I told them I don't work for thieves. Aditi nods firmly. Your grandmother funded my doctoral research. Loyalty isn't just about paychecks. The mention of my grandmother takes me to the bookshelf where I keep her letters. Between quantum theory textbooks sits a worn leather portfolio. Inside, among birthday cards and graduation notes, I find the letter I vaguely remembered, written 2 weeks before she died. My hands tremble as I read her spidery handwriting. The charter amendment is filed with Harrington. If William ever tries to take your work, Article 16 automatically redistributes voting shares. He never reads the fine print, darling. That's always been his weakness. I work through the night, poring over company documents with new understanding, while my team catches sleep in shifts on my sofa and floor. Near dawn, I find it, Article 16, Section 3, Paragraph 7, the clause that changes everything. Grandma knew this day might come. I whisper to her photograph as the first light of morning cuts. Through my blinds, my phone buzzes again and again. The first message is from the patent office. My quantum. Stability algorithm officially granted. The second, a National Science Foundation breakthrough designation confirmed. The third makes me sit up, a smile spreading across my exhausted face. Initial licensing interest starting at $4.2 billion. I look at my sleeping team, at the boxes of research they saved, at James's folder of evidence, at Grandma's letters. They have no idea what's coming. The next morning, the boardroom feels different. 13 members of the Morgan Industries board sit in leather chairs around the massive walnut table, their expressions shifting between curiosity and concern. The emergency meeting called for 9 o'clock sharp has everyone on edge. I stand in the corridor, watching through the glass wall as Dad checks his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. Margaret squeezes my arm. Ready? I smooth my tailored charcoal suit, not the simple pantsuit from last week, but something with enough authority to make a statement. I've been ready for 6 years. We enter, flanked by my legal team carrying sleek portfolios. The room falls silent. Dad rises from his chair at the head of the table, face flushed. This is a closed board meeting, he announces sharply. Elizabeth, you and your entourage need to leave immediately. Before I respond, Dorothy Walker, the silver-haired board chair and my grandmother's oldest friend, taps her gavel. William, I called this emergency meeting at the request of several board members who have concerns about yesterday's attempted sale. She nods toward me. I believe we should hear what Dr. Morgan has to say. Dr. Morgan. The formal acknowledgement of my credentials sends Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows shooting upward. I take my position at the presentation screen as my team distributes leather-bound folders to each board member. 13 pairs of eyes bear down on me, but for once I don't feel small. Thank you for, I begin. This is ridiculous, Victoria interrupts, standing abruptly. Her voice rises with each word. My sister is trying to steal research funded by this company. She's been unstable since our grandmother died, and now she's trying to sabotage a legitimate business deal. Dad nods. I move to adjourn this meeting and handle this family matter privately. Second, calls Vernon Pierce, Dad's golf partner and reliable yes man. I remain still, waiting. Dorothy glances at the folder before her, then shakes her head. Motion denied. Please continue, Dr. Morgan. Victoria slams her palm against the table. She has no right to... The patents for the quantum stability algorithm are registered in my name, I say, my voice steady. They were funded entirely by grandmother's independent trust, not Morgan Industries. The documentation is in your folders, Section 1. Pages rustle as board members read. James, sitting halfway down the table, studies the papers, avoiding Dad's glare. Furthermore, I continue, clicking to the next slide, the National Science Foundation has officially designated our breakthrough as a technology of national significance. I pause, letting the prestigious seal on the screen register. Initial, licensing begins at $4.2 billion, not the $3.5 million in the TechCore contract you attempted to execute yesterday. Collective intake of breath sweeps the room. Vernon? Pierce's mouth hangs open. Dorothy's eyes widen behind her glasses. That's preposterous, Dad sputters. No quantum technology is worth... The Department of Defense disagrees. Margaret speaks smoothly, steering the board to Section 3, the same point already acknowledged by MIT's Quantum Computing Center and 7 leading tech firms with early bids submitted. Victoria's face drains of color, her hands tightening against the polished table. She thinks it's a bluff, fueled by jealousy of my success. It's no bluff, I say, advancing to the next slide. But speaking of success, the FBI has raised some questions about your division's research claims over the last 3 years. The forensic accounting results are in Section 4. I move slowly to the center of the room, making sure I meet every gaze. But there's more, I add. Section 5 holds a clause from Morgan Industries' founding charter, placed by my grandfather and reinforced by my grandmother before her passing. The board members flip through the section, scanning the highlighted passage. In cases of attempted theft of intellectual property, voting shares automatically transfer to the one whose work was targeted. As of yesterday, when you tried to force this sale, I became the controlling shareholder of Morgan Industries. The room erupts, questions flying from all directions, but this time, they're directed at me, not my father. For the first time in my life, I see genuine fear in his eyes. He pushes back his chair and rises. This meeting is over. My lawyers will... The meeting isn't adjourned, Dad? I cut in, the word dad sounding strange in this context. Please sit down. The simplicity of those words freezes him mid-step. The room falls silent as the shift in power takes hold. After decades of control, William Morgan hesitates, then slowly lowers himself back into his chair. Dorothy taps her gavel softly. I believe the board has several questions for our new majority shareholder. I nod, steady despite the pounding of my heart. The revolution hasn't just begun, it's already won. The boardroom feels familiar now. My nameplate shines at the head of the mahogany table where my father once sat for 30 years. 1 week into my chairmanship, and the leather seat still feels stiff, resisting me, as though unwilling to accept the change. Board members enter with cautious smiles, their eyes shifting between me and the empty seats reserved for Dad and Victoria. James slips in quietly, nodding as he sits, his posture straighter than usual. When Dad and Victoria arrive, the air seems to grow colder. Victoria's red blazer blazes like a warning. Dad's charcoal pinstripe suit radiates power. It's cost higher than most people's mortgage payments. Elizabeth. His voice carries none of the respect the others have shown. He sits without waiting for my acknowledgement. Victoria following. This meeting will now come to order, I announce, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. Before I can continue, Dad slides a folder across the table. A proposal for family reconciliation for the good of the company. Victoria leans forward. The press would savor this story, a daughter's hostile takeover. Headlines like family betrayal at Morgan Industries. Do you think stock prices will survive if this gets ugly? Their lawyer Richard Walters produces a document. A cease and desist regarding my use of Morgan family patents. The family name is trademarked, he argues, and your grandmother's trust doesn't. Override certain corporate bylaws. The old Elizabeth, the one dismissed for years as Dad's eccentric daughter, playing with science in the basement, might have faltered. But that Elizabeth is gone. Before we respond to these claims, I say, tapping my tablet, I'd like to introduce Project Helios. The screen lights up with images of a research facility hidden for 3 years, funded by my grandmother's trust and built in a warehouse 30 miles from corporate headquarters. While you undermined my work, I continue, swiping through slides of advanced labs, my team achieved quantum supremacy stable for 78 minutes. We've applied it to protein folding algorithms that already identified 3 potential cancer treatments. Dad's face remains unreadable, but a muscle tightens in his jaw. Our carbon capture technology has also drawn global attention, I add. The government has awarded us contracts totaling $7 billion. Victoria's pen drops to the table. James straightens fully, eyes wide. Morgan Industries stock has already risen 70% since news of my patents broke last week. I finish. Any questions? The silence hangs until Dorothy Walker, my grandmother's old friend and the board's longest-serving member, speaks. I believe we'd all like to hear more about these developments. Elizabeth, I nod to Margaret, who hands out tablets to the members. Here are the results of a forensic audit of the Innovation Division for the past 5 years. Victoria pales as she scrolls. You'll see her division hasn't produced original research since 2019. Instead, it shows a consistent pattern of fraud, falsified results, and plagiarized work. This is outrageous, Victoria sputters, but her voice lacks weight. Page 12 details Dad's talks with Meridian Global to sell controlling interest to foreign investors, without board approval. Dad slams his hand on the table. You've gone too far, Elizabeth. The final page, I continue, ignoring him, compares financial growth across divisions. Mine is the only consistently profitable one, despite having the smallest budget. The room grows still, like the eye of a storm. What happens now? Asks Harold Stevens, Dad's longtime ally. I straighten my blazer. William Morgan will take on the role of chairman emeritus, a symbolic position without operational power. My father rises, face tense. You can't do this. You always told me business isn't personal. Then consider this your own lesson, I reply, signaling security by the door. Victoria's employment is terminated immediately. Criminal charges for falsified research are underway. Victoria pushes back her chair, voice sharp. You think you can end me? I'll destroy this company before I let you win. Her threats fade as security escorts her out. You're ruining the Morgan legacy. You'll regret this. Turning to James, I continue. The CFO position remains yours, under a 6-month probation period monitored by an independent committee. Relief softens his face. Thank you, Elizabeth. I won't disappoint you. Dorothy Walker will serve as interim COO during this transition, I announce. All in favor of approving this restructuring plan? Hands rise across the table. Even Harold Stevens, after hesitation, votes in favor. My father keeps his hand lowered, but it no longer matters. The vote passes unanimously. As the meeting ends, Margaret approaches me. A Financial Times reporter is waiting. In the atrium, cameras flash. A journalist steps forward. Dr. Morgan, what is the future of Morgan Industries? The question lingers. I reflect on legacy, responsibility, and the path ahead. A company that bore my name but resisted my vision. A family tied by blood but divided by values. From the boardroom doorway, my father watches, his expression unreadable. For once, I don't seek his approval. 6 months later, I guide a group of young scientists through what was once a closed-off headquarters. The dark wood doors are gone, replaced by glass walls and open collaboration spaces. This is our quantum stability lab, I explain, smoothing my navy blazer over tailored black pants. No luxury brands, just quiet assurance. Every workstation connects directly to our central hub. A young researcher asks, Dr. Morgan, is it true your team achieved stability for over 80 minutes? I smile. 87 minutes and counting. And please, call me Elizabeth. Later, in the same boardroom where my future was once threatened, new patents are laid across the polished table, quantum-based cancer detection with a 96% accuracy rate. I address the board. Early trials have exceeded expectations. Targeted quantum imaging detects cellular changes 3 years earlier than current methods. The room shifts from interest to awe. Applause follows as it quiets the door opens. My mother, Rebecca, enters quietly, her usual pearls and couture absent. Her plain gray dress makes her appear smaller, more vulnerable. I didn't mean to intrude, she says. You're not intruding, I assure her, sliding a folder across the table once we're alone. I'd like you to consider leading the Morgan Charitable Foundation. After what happened with Father and Victoria, healing where possible is important, even if not every bridge can be rebuilt. Later that day, I celebrate with my original research team, now directors of their own divisions. Dr. Reynolds raises his glass. To Elizabeth, who believed when others couldn't. Nearby, James continues proving himself as CFO, showing daily that integrity can outweigh corruption. Back in my office, I find Allison, a young physicist, nervously presenting her calculations. Everyone says my ideas are too theoretical, she admits. I recognize my younger self in her hesitation. Never let anyone convince you your ideas are too ambitious, I tell her. The quiet ones often lead revolutions. That evening, I hang my grandmother's portrait beside our first patent, the brass plate below reading, "Never underestimate the quiet ones. They're usually building revolutions." At my desk, I review blueprints for a new research campus. A notification flashes. Morgan Industries' value has tripled since restructuring. I close my laptop and glance at the clock. 5:30 p.m. For the first time in years, I'm leaving work on time, because this revolution isn't just about quantum science, it's about redefining what we value most.